All right, we should be on. It's just sending the call to Facebook. Should be all good to go. All right, I think we're all set. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Purnima from Wisconsin, United States. I'm extremely fortunate to have with us Mr. Arif Azakia from London at this point, joining us for a very important discussion. And as you know, we're going to talk about human rights violation and also how Trump is very important for America and for the world. And it's a very critical election over here. And most of you know Mr. Arif Azakia. He has been living in exile, but he had been actually a mayor of Karachi town, Jamshid town. And he also is working on human rights issues and very vocal around how he has seen certain situation in Pakistan. So would like to hear from him directly. As if you have followed him, you know he has been vocal about how Indian he feels. He actually talks about how Hindustani he is. So I don't want to take much time from you, but I would like to introduce you to Mr. Arif Azakia, to all of you. Listen to the crux of the information, what he saw over the years in Pakistan, and also how he's working on human rights issues and real issues. And we're going to be working on how Trump election and re-electing Trump is extremely crucial for this country. So welcome, Mr. Azakia. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And but stage is all yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me. And yes, I belong to Pakistan, but my origin is India. It was one country before, but then, of course, there were some international designs, and a separate country for Muslims was created, a fabricated country created for some special purposes. And I think that Pakistan is a banana republic. And the biggest problem that we have is our army. We have a very brutal and coward army that has committed genocide one after another. In 1970s, 60s and 71 until 71, they committed genocide in East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. And hundreds of thousands of Bengalis were killed by Pakistan army. Women were raped, and destruction was committed on the land of Bangladesh. And then after the intervention of Indian army, Bangladeshi people got independence. And that Bangladesh that we used to call beggars and poor, they don't have anything to eat. Their economy is booming now, and they are much ahead in economic development of Pakistan. Now, remaining Pakistan, Baloch people, the Balochistan was an independent state on 14 August 1947, but in 1948, Pakistan invaded Balochistan, and Balochistan is an occupied land. Thousands of Baloch have been killed by a Pakistan army. A continuous oppression, military oppression is going on in Balochistan, and thousands of Baloch people have been killed. Balochistan is a very rich by natural resources. And the natural resources of Balochistan are plundered by Punjabi army of Pakistan, and now Chinese also have their presence in Balochistan on the name of CPEC, and they are also looting and plundering Baloch resources. While Baloch are being killed, then thousands have gone missing. Same thing is happening in KPK province, where Pakhtuns were branded as terrorists, and they were used in Afghanistan by Pakistan's army to fight against USSR. And after that, the Pakhtuns of Pakistan are being branded internationally as terrorists, while it is Pakhtuns who are being killed. It is Pakhtun land which is plundered and destructed. And then coming to Sindh, Sindh, there is a movement of Sindhu Desh, Azad Sindhu Desh in Sindh going on, because Punjabi army with the hands in hand Sindhi feudal lords is looting and plundering Sindh also. Hundreds of thousands of Sindhis and Muhajirs, the permanent citizens of Sindh, have been kidnapped and killed in extrajudicially. Now, coming to this, we see in Pakistan, for example, another factor is that minorities, the religious minorities, they are facing as persistent persecution. For example, just today, there was Durga Puja in Sindh, Nangar Parkar, Mayo village, and some Islamic extremists, they went there and they broke down idols of Durga Mata. And it is order of the day in Sindh, persecution of minorities. Young minority girls from Hindu community, from Sikh community, Christians, they are kidnapped, teenage girls, they are raped, and then by force they are converted to Islam and married to that rapist, thus making them slave for life. So this is happening in Pakistan, and international community has kept a closed eye on all this. So this is the situation of human rights in Pakistan. We actually live in a very oppressed situation. 220 million Pakistanis are living a life of slaves. The brutal army of Pakistan has snatched every right of every Pakistani. Coming to the elections of United States. Now, United States elections are not only effective to American people, but of course, America being the superpower of the world and the major economic and military power of the world, it dictates terms in many areas, which is necessary also. So for entire world, American elections are important. Equally, like it is important for American people. Uh, I would say that these are very vital elections because there are two, three aspects that we have to see. First of all, Chinese virus and Chinese imperialistic designs. And I think that if in USA anyone can fight with this aggression of China, it is Trump administration, because we cannot see a strong president in Vice President Biden. The second aspect is Islamic extremism, which is on very much rise, and it has to be tackled. And to tackle it, I think a strong President Trump is much effective than a weak Biden, who is continuing his policy of appeasement. Now, the time of appeasement has gone. France has learned its lesson. And every day we find that some Muslim people, they attack common French people. And finally, President Macron of France has come up strongly against these Islamists, and first time a head of state is directly calling them Islamic terrorists. Nobody else calls them Islamic terrorists. They always say that terrorism has no religion and this and that, but French president has come up with this, and I think that President Trump can also come up strongly against this Islamic extremism. So these are the points which are very important to, and of course, international community is not a vote American election. So we cannot vote, but it is my request to American people to think before voting, because it is very important. Your vote will dictate the terms for entire globe. and we need a strong president, which can be only Mr. Trump.
Huh. Thank you so much. It's absolutely whatever you just mentioned makes absolutely uh, crucial points of in terms of Chinese imperialistic design as well as the Islamic terrorism is quite important. One other thing kind I would like to focus mainly on specifically on Pakistan. Now the reason I want to talk about it is because majorly, as you know, today in America for the last few months or so, mostly democratic cities ruled by Democratic Party, Democratic rulers, they have been passing anti-CAA resolution. Now, these, the one part of it is that makes no sense in terms of no matter what kind of discussion it is, they don't talk about the reality of the CAA itself. What is a citizens amendment agenda is, right? So the definition doesn't align. They are constantly pushing a narrative that this CAA is against Muslims. Now, I want you to talk about more from a perspective of historical context, how Pakistan was created, how Muslim League came, and how Muslim League is still working. It's not dead; it's actually alive and working against India on Break India agenda, and how these CAA narratives in United States have been pushing wrong information and defamation on India and Indian sovereignty. As a Pakistani, if you could go back into how Pakistan was created and how these massive narratives was pushing based on ISI, that'll be very interesting and informative for the people of America today. Even Hindus don't know, most of the Hindus don't know all those.
Well, if we go to the colonial India, India has always been a rich country, and entire world was always attracted to India's wealth. And that's why India has seen so many invasions, Muslim invasions, and then, of course, British invasion. Even French also tried, and Portuguese, and entire world tried their best. When Second World War started, United Kingdom, the occupier of India, knew that they have to leave today or tomorrow India, and they did not want to leave one India, because if they had left one India, United India, it had a potential of becoming a superpower. And that's why it was an international design of United Kingdom and United States, of course, because after World War we saw that United States became this bigger power in the world. So therefore, in India, before 1940, there were never Hindu-Muslim clashes. But these clashes were created, and an ideology was floated that Muslims and Hindus cannot live together, so there should be a separate state for Muslims, that is called Pakistan. A movement was started and clashes were created between Hindus and Muslims. Until 1944, there were no major clashes, but in 1944 and 1945, after World War, major clashes started between Hindus and Muslims. You can see that two major provinces of United India, Bengal and Punjab, were divided into two pieces on the grounds of religion. And bloodshed, millions of people died in these designs. When Pakistan was created in 1947, a separate state for Muslims, my question is that the Mr. Jinnah, who created Pakistan, after creating Pakistan until 14 August 1947, he used to say that Muslims need a separate country to practice their religion. But on 11 August 1947, addressing to the first Constituent Assembly of Pakistan, he said that now you are an independent country. Now everyone is equal and Pakistan will be secular state. How come Pakistan be a secular state when it was created for Muslims, first of all? But it did not remain secular and it became Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Although Pakistan is neither a republic nor an Islamic. I will come later on how Islamic we are. Coming to India, Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, he declared India as a secular state. Now, if you have given a separate country to Muslims, then why India could not be a Hindu Rashtra? Why it remained secular, first of all. Then second thing, that when you have created a country for Muslims of India, why did you close the borders in 1951, having an Liaquat Nehru pact between Pakistan and India, and stopped migration? If Muslims had a separate state, why they were not asked to go to their own country which was created for them? So these are the designs. And then some outstanding issues like Jammu and Kashmir, and these kind of issues were left behind by imperialistic Great Britain, so that Pakistan and India keep fighting each other, and India cannot become a major power internationally. Now, what happened in Pakistan, that it is called Islamic Republic. But first of all, we have to have a definition of what is Islamic. Because in Pakistan, there are Shias, there are Sunnis, there are Wahhabis, Ahle Hadith, Devbandi, Aga Khani. There are so many sects of Islam, and all these sects declare each other kafir, non-Muslim. So first of all, we have to see that how Pakistan can be Islamic. Because when they say that we should have a Sharia, we ask them which Sharia? Shia Sharia, Sunni Sharia, Deobandi Sharia. And then in Pakistan, religion was used. The forefathers of Pakistan movement were Ahmadis. But in 1974, Ahmadis were declared non-Muslims, according to Pakistan's constitution. So Pakistan is a banana republic, and there are no certain parameters of defining that what is Islamic and which sect of Islam will rule Pakistan. After the invasion of Afghanistan in 1979, the American CIA and Pakistan's ISI used religion card, and they created jihadis. And Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, a couple of years back, when he came to United States, in an interview, he said that we invested billions of dollars to promote extreme form of Islam and jihadism in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and Muslim countries. So these were the designs, that religion card was always played in Pakistan. A force of jihad was created by Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and America in Pakistan. So Pakistan is using Islamic card, the religion card, to promote the ideology of a theocratic state. Pakistan's army continues its brutal rule on Pakistan on the basis of playing religion card. So I think that creation of India, which was a design of superpowers, and this was the reason that India cannot become a potential superpower of the world. They created Pakistan, a buffer state, which serves the interests of the West, especially the superpowers, and keeps engaged India in different wars. Now, coming to Citizen Amendment Act. The Citizen Amendment Act, how can it be against Muslims? Because the act simply says that three countries, Muslim countries, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, the minorities are facing persecution in these countries. For example, in Pakistan, 1947, there were 15% non-Muslim population, which is hardly 2% now. So there is a persistent persecution of minority communities in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, and in Afghanistan. So India is giving citizenship or residence or asylum safe haven to those minorities who are persecuted. How can you give these rights to Muslims who are oppressor, who are not oppressed, who are oppressing these minorities? So how can you give equal rights to them? India has given a safe haven to those minorities who are persecuted in these countries. And the second thing is to understand that only it applies, Citizen Amendment Act applies only to those minority communities from Hindu, Sikh, Buddhist, uh, Christian, Parsi, these communities who have already arrived in India and living in India, who have already come to India before December 2014, they are entitled to Citizen Amendment Act. It is not that everyone can come now and settle in India on the name of Citizen Amendment Act. It was for a limited number of people who were already living in India since December 2014. So there is a misperception of Citizen Amendment Act. And I think that somewhere Indian diplomacy failed here to convince the world of actual benefits of Citizen Amendment Act was to a persecuted minority community of these three oppressive Islamic states. So Citizen Amendment Act was a wonderful thing, and I think that it should be extended now again for more minority communities, because in Pakistan and Bangladesh and Afghanistan, uh, minorities are facing persecution. Last month, 700 Sikh people were brought from Afghanistan to India because they were facing real persecution there, and there was a danger that they will be killed in Afghanistan by Islamic extremist forces. So India has given them asylum, and India has given them a place to live in harmony. So Citizen Amendment Act is not against Muslims, but it is against the oppressing Islamic extremists. It is not against the common Muslim people. In India, they are now, for example, there is a perception that now a Muslim cannot go to India and live there. But it is not true. Adnan Sami was granted Indian nationality. He's a Muslim, and his father was a serving Pakistan Army's general, but still he got Indian nationality, because if you fulfill the criteria of Indian nationality, you are entitled to Indian nationality, no matter you are Muslim or not Muslim.
Right. So few things for our audience to understand clearly as to what the definition of CA was and how it was used, how humanitarian act it was. Instead, you mentioned, Zakia ji, you mentioned how Indian government was not able to clarify this, but I'd also add a couple of things over here. You see how India is a free country with a ability to speak freely, have a ability to practice your faith freely. So Indian government really doesn't go around and punish everybody who says things differently. And now India has media which is pretty powerful, and most of them are leftist media, whether it's Washington Post, New York Times, BBC, Telegraph, you talk about Times Magazine, everything is there. But at the end of the day, what happens over there is Indian government, because it's not oppressive government, because it's open and free, it doesn't really punish for even the lies they publish. So being part of Indian soil, these entities, these channels are writing wrong narratives, and Pakistani ISI and CIA of US totally understand that and abuses this again and again as well. Now, at the same time, what's happening here in the United States is today, when I got totally involved in these anti-CAA resolutions, what I saw that the definitions, the narratives they're using is not only just against India, but against Narendra Modi, against BJP, basically a political party in a sovereign country, but also against Hindus, meaning the narratives they were writing, it was against the India itself overall was oppressing the Muslim community. That's how the narratives was coming to. And there was no way for us to fight back because Democratic Party here, uh, pushed by kinds of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Barack Obama and XYZs of their the party establishment folks, they were pushing narratives against India through this channel. Now, these are small cities like Albany of New York, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and St. Paul, Minneapolis. But you have to understand what this city are going to do it. Most of the people were saying that these means nothing. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the crux of the information, what they were saying. This is very critical and important information. It was going under the cover and happening without any conversation with the Hindu people in the community. They're passing the law again and again. What was happening? These representatives like Pramila Jayapal from Washington, they were pushing this kind of narratives to defame India, defame Narendra Modi, defame BJP, defame. They're saying that we wanted Hindu Rashtra. You rightly pointed out, if Pakistan was created as a Muslim country for Muslims, why at that time India was not declared as a Hindu country? Right? It is something that we still ponder, and we are today suffering because Indira Gandhi, 1976, pushed a word called secular in the constitution, and we are fighting against it. That as a Hindu today, we don't feel respected. We are feeling constantly bombarded by negative information about us, that we as a Hindu are attacking Muslims. You as a Muslim, tell me, as you said, Adnan Sami was accepted as a Hindu nationalist, Indian nationalist, even though he is a Muslim and even though his father was in army, right? So he hasn't gone against our country yet. That kind of trust has been put on him. So I want to understand from your perspective what is happening and what we Hindus can do. And this is happening here. The aspect that I described is happened here in the United States. And these narratives are getting built by the ISIs and also breaking force in India.
Well, as I have been working in human rights field, and one thing I never understood, that India is a secular state. Now, when there is a secular state, state has no religion. As India state has no religion, then why there are minorities? Minorities only exist in the countries where state has a religion. Now, for example, Pakistan is an Islamic republic. Therefore, Hindus are a minority there. But India is a secular state, so why there are minorities? First of all. The second thing is, what is the definition of minority? In Jammu Kashmir, there are more than 50% are Muslims. So who is minority there? Muslims or Hindus? Now, Hindu genocide went on in 1989 in Jammu and Kashmir, and every Hindu Pandit was expelled from Jammu and Kashmir. So who is minority? Then if you go to Bengal, Hindus are in minority there. So there are so many states of India where minorities are Hindu. Then second thing, the biggest problem Indian Hindus are facing is that majority, not majority, but many of Hindus, they try to keep themselves secular. While all the other religions, they keep their own religion brand and they become a Muslim first or Christian first, then Indian. But Hindus, they say, no, we are secular. You have, okay, but there should be a limit. Always in India, religious sentiments of Hindu are violated, but they have always taken care of religious sentiments of Muslims and all others. You have seen many Bollywood movies where Hindu Bhagwans are humiliated time and again. But I would never see one movie where Allah is humiliated because they don't have guts. They know that immediately there will be a violence, a very minimum blasphemy. And we saw Bangalore a few months back. Entire Bangalore was harassed. Police station was set on fire by Muslims. But Hindus' blasphemy goes on and nobody does anything because it is taken for granted in India. and Hindus have to rise for their rights. I don't say that they take violence like Muslims, but like it happened with Tanshik jewelry. Hindus did like a civilized nation, an educated people. They objected and they ran a campaign on social media, and that advertisement had to be taken back. The same thing happens to Eros. Whenever there is Eid or a religious festival of Muslims, they pass on very good, beautiful ad and sweet Eid and this and that. But when there is Holi, don't waste water. When there is Diwali, don't spoil the atmosphere and don't do pollution and this and that. So it is taken for granted by minorities also and by left. As you said in your statement that Indian media is controlled by leftists. Bad luck of India was that India was ruled by Congress for so long time, and Congress had an appeasement policy, persistent appeasement of Muslim community, Christian communities. And now today we see that Hindus are feeling alienated in their own country. They are feeling strangers. They are feeling that they are from outside, and maybe still they are living in that colonial period. And Hindus have to come up with their right for their rights. They have to raise their voice for everything. In United States, when they pass resolutions in houses against Citizen Amendment Act, I would like to know how many resolutions were passed on the persecution of minorities in Pakistan. On daily basis, there are minority girls are kidnapped. Why there is not a single resolution passed? So here Hindus have to come, especially the NRI Indians have to come up for their rights. If Pakistan government issues a statement that we are doing a protest against India in front of Indian embassy in Washington, I'm sure 5 to 10,000 Pakistanis will be there protesting. But if India will say that Pakistan sent their terrorists on 26/11/2008, so we are doing a protest, hardly 50 Hindus will not be there in front of Pakistan embassy. So this is the difference between the community also. Hindus and Indians have to come up to safeguard their country, their civilization. It is a beautiful Sanatan society. This Sanatan society is the only society, only philosophy that says that you may believe on whatever God you want. And your paradise is not guaranteed because you are belonging to Hindu. But in Muslim, as a Muslim child, I was raised, and the first thing I was taught was that only you are correct in the world. All other beliefs are not correct. Only you will go to paradise and nobody else. Every non-Muslim will be rotted in hell. Now, this is racism. This is fascism. But Sanatan Dharam does not teach this. Sanatan Dharam teaches that your deeds will decide your future. So Hindus should bring pride outside now, and they should come out to safeguard their beautiful civilization, beautiful philosophy of Sanatan Dharam.
Absolutely, you are absolutely right. It hurts us as a Hindu when we talk about our Hindu rights, and then we also get blamed and labeled as racist, Islamophobe, xenophobe. We are here. We are also terrorists. Now, interestingly, America is also Democrat Party pushed resolutions are also pushing RSS as a terrorist here. If you could look at what RSS has done in terms of taking care of the people, whether it's a corona or any other issues that we have faced today, we are fighting, saying in this country that they are actually trying to say, I'm not even a part of RSS, but I look at news, I understand. But they call me RSS stooge. They call me I'm a Modi bhakt. So what if I'm a Modi bhakt? So what if I'm a India bhakt? Because it's our religion, because it's our culture, because it's our history and heritage has been completely polluted at this point. I can't talk about it because I'm racist. If I do, I'm a racist. So we have those kind of issues over here today. In fact, I'll tell you, we mentioned about community differences. I'll tell you what. I got a call about an hour ago from a person named Priyanka Bardwaj. She is, I asked her background. She is, so hear me out about the story. She is a third year student in University of Green Bay, about hour and a half from Milwaukee here. She called me to make sure that I support Biden. And she's an Indian brown color girl. And I asked her a little bit more about why she's calling. She's calling from Planned Parenthood advocacy. So it's a non-profit organization. They call themselves a healthcare provider, but they're actually abortion clinic. And they are using democratic platform to push agenda for their organization. Now I asked her, it's a non-profit organization. How can they have a political arm? She said they're both political and non-profit. I'm like, okay, wonderful. So why shouldn't I vote for Trump? She said Trump is racist, Islamophobe, xenophobe. We shouldn't be voting. So I said, are you Hindu or you are Muslim? She said, I'm Hindu. Then I said, are you Hindu phobe? She said, no, I'm not a Hindu phobe. Then I said, what? Oh, so tell me exactly why Trump should be taken off from the seat. She said, it's more because I'm taking part of BLM as well, the Black Lives Matter. I see the police brutality. I'm like, do you know what you're talking about? Do you understand what George Floyd was filled with at the time that he was caught? And also Jacob Blake, one of the local guy who was killed over here. Oh no, sorry, he was paralyzed over here, sorry. And he was shot on the back by police, and he was actually resisting the arrest. So those kind of, when you talk about Hindu, you see that the little girl is a Hindu girl who called me to make sure that I vote for Biden, not Trump, because she doesn't even know what Biden supports and how Biden and how her parents came over to United States 25 years ago to do higher studies. I asked her, why did she come? Why did they come over here if the United States was a racist country? She said, no, it was not racist before. It only became racist in 2016 election when Trump started talking about Islamophobic narratives. There you have it. So because Trump established a travel ban on dangerous, risky countries, which are actually part of the country list of Obama's, today he is a racist. And today he's also Islamophobe. I come from the world's largest democracy in the world, where Muslims also have the same equal right, or even more than me today. At this point, yeah, truly speaking, in literally speaking, they have more rights than us Hindus and a poor Hindu will ever get in India. And today they are the one who's trying to tell me that I am a racist. And we in India, we have 250 to 300 million Muslims in the country. How are they living in the country if the country was not safe? The country gives them Hajj, it gives them all kinds of madrasa benefits, all kinds of benefits to bring up children. We Hindu don't get that because we are quote unquote majority. We don't get anything out of government. I come from Tripura. By the way, you talked about Bangladesh. Bangladesh, the Tripura is a neighboring state of Bangladesh. The border is Bangladesh, one of the side. That part of the country has got nothing. Nothing. We come from nothing. The Indian government has done nothing for the last 74 years. Today, I still came here to United States. We didn't go against the country saying that country didn't do anything for us. And how come our Indian Muslims are supporting anti-India agenda? That's something that I would like to also target around and understand from your point. How are Indian Muslims going against our Indian sovereign country, where they were given the space, they were given a human rights, they were given all kinds of subsidies from the government, and today they are turning around as another wave of breaking India.
Well, I had an interview today with RSS advocate today, And I had put many allegations like you are saying that RSS is termed as terrorist organization. Now, I would like to tell you one thing, that during this pandemic, when ration distribution was going on in Pakistan, there are videos available on YouTube. Some Hindus were waiting to get rations from Pakistani or NGOs. And the NGO said, hey, why are you waiting? You are not Muslim, so we will not give you ration in Pakistan. But in India, RSS delivered ration to Muslim houses, Christian houses, everyone, irrespective of their religion, caste, creed, culture, whatever they are. They distributed, they did not differentiate in people on the basis of religion. The second thing you mentioned, that some democratic states are bringing up a resolution against terrorism of RSS. My question is, how many resolutions they brought against Taliban, which is registered terrorist, which has committed crimes against humanity? Can anyone name any act of terrorism of RSS? What terrorism they have committed? They speak about Muslim genocide in India. I can provide you list of people killed by Pakistan army, Baloch, thousands of. If you want, I can send you the list. I have list of the people kidnapped from this address, their families' statement. Everyone is available. Same thing for Sindhis, Muhajirs, Pakhtuns, minorities. We have list of everyone. This is called genocide. Can you give me 10 names of Muslims? Only 10. I'm not asking more. Who are killed extrajudicially in India, who are killed by Hindu mobs or extremist Hindus. This is really a negative propaganda against the most peaceful people of the world, which are Hindus. Hindus themselves are not realizing that how peaceful they are, and a negative benefit has been extracted from Hindus' peacefulness. Because of them being peaceful, they are always branded as terrorist and whatever. But on record, you cannot bring list of any people who are killed in India. Now, for example, mosques in India are getting subsidies. In Ramzan, they get rice and free this and that. Hajj subsidy. There are zakat board. There are waqf board, and government has no say in the affairs of mosques. On the other hand, mandirs are controlled by government. Even the wealth of mandir is taken away from government by government. Now, this is a limit. I think that tolerance, there should be there is a limit of a tolerance. And then, if Hindus are speaking today for their rights, they are called fascist and racist, and like you are facing these things. You are not killing anyone. You are not taking a knife in your hand and killing someone. Muslims are doing this, but still they are termed very peaceful, and Islam is a religion of peace. Maybe Islam is a religion of peace, but Muslims are not peaceful. Muslims has a history of violence. In United States, during this Black Lives Movement, there is a girl, Batul. She was arrested red-handed. She was throwing a petrol bomb in a police car. Pakistani girl. Wherever there is a terrorist arrested, if you raise the tail of terrorist, there is a stamp made in Pakistan. Nobody is speaking about this, but they will call about Hindu terror, Hindu extremism, RSS is terrorism. Can you name one act of RSS which is called terrorism? While Hindus are facing persecution on daily basis, but Hindus still have not taken violence. They have not taken path of violence to register their protest. They have acted as a civilized nation. And as a Pakistani, I feel more comfortable with Indians than Pakistanis, because we don't allow freedom of speech. We don't allow freedom of expression. We don't allow freedom of thinking. We have been limited to a box, and we are not allowed to think out of the box. But India is a free society. and everyone gets equal opportunity if he is belonging to a minority religion. But if he is Hindu, they have reservations for Muslims, they have every benefit for minorities, but Hindus, they have to work hard to get their rights. So this is the difference. Hindus have to understand this. Now, that girl that you were mentioning about voting for Biden, you know, the longest standing issue between two religions, two communities, is between Jews and Arabs. Who has solved it? Centuries old issue between Jews and Arab. This is President Trump. In just 3.5 years, so many Muslim countries are recognizing Israel, are establishing relationship with Israel. Yesterday, Sudan established relationship with Israel. And everyone knows that these are because of President Trump's effort. Saudi Arabia is next. 10 Muslim countries are ready to accept Israel as a sovereign state and establish relationship with them. Isn't it a breaking news? Because it is the Middle East conflict was always there since centuries. And now, because of the efforts of President Trump, it is solving. Hindus have to realize that a strong President Trump is so beneficial for entire India, not only Hindus. It is beneficial for entire India. And if President Trump wins, I'm sure that India will have very much say in international affairs. Coming to the China point, who is fighting China? Who is strongly opposing China? India. And entire world is behind India. And they are saying that we are with India in this fight against China, because everyone knows that nobody else can fight with this monster. Only Indians have guts. And we saw in Ladakh that Indians replied with so much force that China is not able to come forward now. So President Trump's victory is very important for India, for Indians, whether it is a Muslim Indian or Hindu Indian, because a strong India is good for every Indian. Being a Muslim or Hindu or Sikh or Parsi or Christian, whatever religion they are Indians. And a strong India is in benefit of every Indian. That they have to realize that they have a beautiful country with a beautiful philosophy and society. They have to preserve this society. And if they are opposing their own civilization, they are not serving them. It is not good for them also.
Right, right. Absolutely true. Well, it hurts, and it also raises a lot of questions in terms of how Islam has taken over India at one point of time. Of course, British came, and that reduced the expansion of Islamism, which we don't understand and talk about the history much and understand the crux of it. Most of the Hindus were converted, and most of them converted because they wanted to save lives. And we see pictures, we see descriptions, we see how our Sikh gurus were also taunted and killed. Guru Gobind Singh's sons were buried alive, and Tegh Bahadur's, how he was killed. So we don't talk about certain things. We don't talk about the severity and the atrocity and the brutality of the force. We constantly, today, the girl that we were talking about, she when she talked about how Mr. Trump was pushing Islamophobia, when I asked her a question, she said it was because of 9/11. Mr. Trump is, pushing Islamophobia. I said, okay, so I understand with you that not all Muslims are bad. And we should not be punishing the entire Muslim community because of certain people made wrong. So if there is a crime, you punish the perpetrator. That is, I totally agree with you. Then why the same concept, the same ideology doesn't align with police brutality? Then why are you shouting part of BLM saying that all cops are bad? ACAB is written everywhere. Why? She didn't have any answer. So we have a problem in the society that we are going, this is a kid in a college. We're talking about college indoctrination. We're talking about radicalizing in the college settings. And I'll also give you an example. There's a the college professor. Her name is Audrey Trushke in Rutgers University. She wrote a book on Aurangzeb, and she's pushing and pushing and pushing narratives against Hindus and how Aurangzeb is good, or how Mughal was good, and that kind of narratives are coming and constant. If you look at her Twitter, you will see venoms against Hindus, venoms against Hinduism and Hindutva. And we today, Hindus, anybody who raises a voice against human rights violation against Hindus are labeled as racist and labeled as somebody who is Islamophobe. We are not Islamophobe. We are not somebody who, even as you rightly pointed out before, Sanatana Dharma is somebody, it doesn't matter what you follow. You are okay with everything. You have the right, an equal right for anybody. But that doesn't mean the crimes are not going to get punished. That doesn't mean that if you are a Muslim and if you cause a crime because of your religion, you are saved. And that kind of narratives are getting pushed here at this point. So my question, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
No, so my question is basically to turn that around into what do we do? This is happening in the educational institution. This is happening in the media basis. This is happening through our normal people. Like even in our own Hindu group, most of the Hindus are afraid of speaking out about it. So that is why you don't see Hindus doing protest. You will see, 10 times more Pakistanis protesting on things that they don't even know what they're protesting on.
Well, it is the basic weaknesses of Indian education system. After 1947, your first education minister was a Muslim, Abul Kalam Azad. Now, every Indian knows about every Mughal king, but they will not know about Shivaji Maharaj. They will not know about Chola dynasty or Maurya Gupta. They don't know about Hindu rulers because you are taught only Muslim rulers, and Muslim rulers are painted in a very positive manner. While, let me tell you that when Muslim invaders came to India, they put a jizya on non-Muslims. How conversion came in? Because every non-Muslim, every Hindu of India had to pay a jizya to Muslim ruler in their own country. And they say that Mughals are good. Taj Mahal was built in 1632 by Shah Jahan. From 1630 to 1632, there was a Deccan famine in India. 7.5 million Indians died because of hunger. And your Mughal king was making Taj Mahal. So this is the way they were serving India. 40,000 mandirs are destructed by these Muslim invaders in India. And you are talking about that how good Aurangzeb was. How many Indians were killed by Aurangzeb? Do you know that? This is, we have to teach to our children. But the basic weakness is in Indian education system, because you are always taught good things about Muslim invaders. An invader is an invader. This we have to understand. An invader is an invader. Mughals were invader. Whether Akbar was born in India, never went out of India, but still he was invader. If he was not invader, then why did not he go back? But because he had such a wealthy country under his control, he had millions of slaves there, so they stayed in India. They came there for Indian wealth and they stayed there for Indian wealth. Basics weakness is in Indian education system. Indian curriculum has to change. You have to teach your Hindu heroes also, and you have to show them that how brutal these invaders were. There were no basic human rights. 50,000 slaves, Akbar's every Amir because every area there was an Amir. 90% Amirs were Muslims. Now you are telling that by force they were converted. There is enforced conversion also. Because, for example, what happens in Pakistan, that there is a classroom of 20 children who are studying in a classroom. 19 are Muslim, one is non-Muslim. They will treat him, humiliate him so much so that that child will start thinking that why don't I become a Muslim? Then I will be a first class citizen. I cannot drink from the same glass that Muslim children are drinking. I cannot touch their pot, their cutlery. So this is enforced conversion, that you humiliate somebody so much so that after all he thinks that why don't I? The same thing happened in India, that Muslim rulers, they humiliated, the humiliating behavior with Hindus was so high that most of the Hindus, now for example, my forefathers were Hindus. They converted. Why they converted? Because they were thinking that if we become Muslims, we will be first class citizen. We don't have to pay a tax. Jizya was a tax for non-Muslims only. We don't have to pay tax. We will have more facilities. We will be living as a first class citizen. Convert. So this is what happened, and we have to teach to our future generations by changing the education system. In education system, you have to teach that how good Hindu rulers were. Chandragupta Maurya, he was such a wonderful ruler. Chola dynasty, then Rana Pratap Singh. You don't know about them. Prithviraj Chauhan. If you ask a Hindu, they don't know anything about them. But Akbar, oh yes, Mughal Azam, Babur, wonderful. Aurangzeb, Shah Jahan built Taj Mahal. Are you don't know that 20,000 Indians were killed to build Taj Mahal? Millions of Indian rupees were spent on building of Taj Mahal, while there was Deccan famine and 7.5 million Indians died because of hunger. So we have to teach correct history to our children. Changing of curriculum is very important.
Absolutely. I think you hit the note right. The education system is important over here. Also, we are seeing this is coming over here. What the resistance we see from the white communities is they don't understand, especially speaking the world affairs. They don't understand what happened in the past in eastern side or any other countries. So when we talk and take those references, since this is coming over here, this is you going to face the same thing that our ancestors have faced. They don't understand that. They don't think that's a threat for them. So we try our best, of course, through different kinds of channels, writings, and etc. But it doesn't go through the way that we would like it to be. They don't understand the threat that it is actually in their doorstep at this point. When Ilhan Omar in House says that some people did something for 9/11 and it was that devastating for world. And today we have not only just congresswoman from Somalia, refugee as a congress, but we also have a Palestinian pushing Palestine agenda, trying to abolish Israel, which they don't understand. And when we look at the pictures of and go to Temple Mount and see how the Al Aqsa Mosque is sitting there, they don't understand that in India for millions of years we have been seeing our temples getting destroyed and ruined and mosques getting built on top of it. And you kind of mentioned about it, but look at our Ram temple, the fight for 500 years almost. Today, when the Ram temple is now getting built, we are hearing that Hindus have destroyed a mosque, but they don't talk about how the mosque Babri Masjid was actually created. So I'd like to hear from you, from your perspective, how do we convince this the white population over here who don't understand how global issues are hitting them right here in their footstep at this point, and this is a real threat, and they need to wake up and see.
Well, I think again, it is educating people with historical perspectives. You have to bring historical evidences and to show them that how persecuted Hindus are. It is not that Hindu is persecuting anyone, it is Hindus who are persecuted in their own country. And after all, it is a centuries old persecution of Hindus that's going on, and it is taken for granted. And until and unless we bring correct history to the knowledge of people, they will not know. There is no doubt about it, violence in Islam. Everyone knows about it, but they don't talk about it. Today, French president is the only one who has come up strongly and clearly he says that yes, this teacher was killed. It is an Islamist terrorism. Even 9/11 happened in America and they did not call it Islamic terrorism. So we have to correct historical perspectives and people have to study the true history, not what connected and fabricated history that we are being taught in our schools and in our colleges. First of all, before convincing others, we have to convince our own people. First of all, we have to teach correct history to our own children. When we will teach them correct history, they will know how rich their society is, how rich their civilization is, and then they will feel proud. But I think that there is somewhere still slavery, or you can say that still we are living in that imperial society when we were slaves of British and Muslim invaders. So most of us have not come out of this. Now, for example, I will give you one example of myself, that my father and mother were born in Ajak, Gujarat. It is a small village. Since my childhood, I was born in Karachi. I was taught that Mahmud Ghaznavi is our hero. And I was always feeling proud that Mahmud Ghaznavi is my hero. But when I studied the correct history, I studied that my village, Ajak, is 50, 60 kilometers from Somnath, which was conquered by Mahmud Ghaznavi. And he kidnapped 50,000 women from my villages and sent these women to be sold in bazaars of Ghazni and Baghdad. Now, should I feel proud that Mahmud Ghaznavi took away my forefathers, enslaved them, sold them in Baghdad? So this is the history we were taught. And I was feeling so ashamed that how will I face my forefathers? That I was feeling to the person who kidnapped women from my forefathers' families. So this is the matter of history. Correct history we have to teach to our children, and then we can convince others. First, we have to convince our own people that no, you are not persecuting, you are persecuted. Hindus are not racist. Hindus have faced racism and fascism since centuries.
Right. So you see, you talked about BLM, you talked about how it's important to teach correct history. Over here in America, you have seen in Europe too, the BLM, that George Floyd killing that pushed and created a whole a narrative of Black Lives Matter that was also heard from Bollywoods of India. In Indian Bollywood stars has stood with the BLM, but they didn't have the guts to stand with our Hindu priests who were killed right in their backyard. And you talk about history in this country today. They are trying to bring down the one president who abolished slavery here, Abraham Lincoln. They are trying to abolish everything about what America is because it doesn't fit their narrative, because it doesn't fit their right-wing Republican side of the political agenda. They want to literally talk about how blacks were abused and they don't get the societal status, let's say. But at the end of the day, if you also look at the cities that is run by leftist Democrats, they've been running those cities, they've been running those counties for 60 years, 40, 50, 60 years. Those are the very cities who are facing problem today after 60 years. So what did they do for 60 years? So these are the question we have to ask. But unfortunately, our school children, college children like that, they don't ask question of what the history was. They don't ask a question of what happened in 60 years ago when you took this position, and the same cities like Baltimore, Chicago, even Milwaukee, highest crime, highest poverty, blacks are not getting treated right. So you talking about it's Trump's fault today? Trump only came into the scene for 3.5 years ago. What happened 60 years ago, right? So let's come back to one critical information for this. You already touched on many, but tell me, as a Muslim, as a Pakistani born living in London and right now French citizen, why do you support Trump? You are a Muslim. Let's take that into consideration, because right now, one quick information I'll give you here is there is a million Muslim votes for Biden. It's an initiative that was started by 7 organizations like Engage and Linda Sosor, Palestinian women, and etc. Several, even a Pakistani organization is part of it. So they are trying to make sure that entire Muslim community, no matter where they're from, whether even Indian Muslims, part of the vote block of Biden. Now, this is concerning to me as an Indian, because Indian Muslim now has chosen Biden against their own country, against their own civilization, against their own history and heritage. So that is concerning to me. So as a Muslim, why do you think Trump is right for America and the world?
First of all, I would like to ask you that was George Floyd first black man killed? No.
No.
It's happening since it happened in democratic government. It has nothing to do with President Trump. So Black Lives Matters movement was more a political, though I agree that the black people have been facing some sort of discrimination on some levels. Agreed. But this movement was hijacked by left and Muslims. Now, President Trump, as I mentioned, that the longest standing dispute in the world is Arab-Jewish dispute, which is centuries old dispute. This is being solved by President Trump, which is a groundbreaking thing. Second thing, that as a Muslim, I feel that my religion is hijacked by extremists. And if anyone has guts to face these extremists, it is President Trump. Because Vice President Biden has already given so much appeasement to Muslims, and he has no guts to stand against Islamic extremism. Islamic extremism is not only problem for non-Muslims, it is a problem for majority of Muslims like me, because majority of Muslims feel that this is not the way to live in today's world. We are not living in 1400 years back era when there were no human rights, there were no civilizational awareness and all this. Today, the world is a global village, and in this world, coexistence is only solution. And Muslims, majority of them, they feel that Islam and Muslim societies have been hijacked by Islamic extremists. And if somebody in America can fight extremists, it is President Trump. And it will be good for for Muslims also, and for Islamic people also. Now, for example, I am a French citizen. I don't feel any persecution in France or in England or anything, because I live like a normal Muslim man. I believe in coexistence. I don't teach my children extremism. I don't teach my children that this friend is Christian, so they are not equal to you because only you will go to paradise. I always teach them one thing, that the world is your paradise or hell. Now it is up to you that you make it paradise or you make it hell. Nobody after dying has come to tell you that what happened after death. So forget about after death life. Think about this life. So as a Muslim, President Trump is the best choice because Vice President Biden, he has no policy. He is just giving appeasement and appeasement. And then his candidate for Vice President, Kamala Harris, such a hypocrite, such a hypocrite character. Sometimes she becomes black, sometimes she becomes Hispanic, sometimes she becomes Tamil, sometimes she becomes Hindu, appeasing Muslims. What does she want? What is her contribution to the American people or anything? Same thing. Vice President Biden is in power since 47 years. Tell me what is his contribution? Why Muslim Pakistan had to give highest civilian order to Biden? Because he was a supporter, appeasement supporter of Muslim societies, which is dangerous. President Trump is not against Muslims. President Trump is not against any community. He believes on equality. He believes that Muslims have to come out of that superiority complex, that we are better than all other people. President Trump believes on equality, and that's why I think that he is very good for Muslims also. Why Arabs like the President Trump? There is a reason why Arabs, who are the birthplace of Islam is Arab, Saudi Arabia and all these, why they like President Trump? Because he has a policy for everyone. Biden has nothing.
Right. I think this is a very important point, and I have added reason for President Trump because of China, as you said, how Chinese aggression and expansionism has been hurting India for decades, and our Congress ruling party was unable to face that. Today we have Narendra Modi and BJP government, and they are successfully and with strength making sure that India is not being taken advantage of anymore from the border perspective, and that's an added information. But also from a fascism perspective, you see, as we talked about before, India is not a fascist country. None of the government who comes here was a fascist country. But at the end of the day, media is leftist. Media is trying to push their own agenda through different political pressure. So what we are seeing in India is like today, in few months, I believe it was a month ago. So we have seen even Congress Party of India signing an MOU with China. I mean, which a political party of a sovereign country signs an MOU with another country, which is a enemy country who's trying to take over our economy, destroy the country and the borders. So it's dangerous from a perspective of even from a normal standpoint, but also from a political standpoint. As you see, India is not just going through corona issues, just like any other country, but India has additional issues of Islamic terrorism. We have issues in terms of border taking over. Those Chinese aggression. We also have issues in terms of within the country, we have groups who's now, whether it's a Jamia Millia or AMU, Aligarh Muslim University, the purpose of these universities are gone now. It should not be now, pushing anti-India agenda anymore. Whatever they wanted, they got it. Aligarh Muslim University, Mr. Sayyid, he wanted Muslim country, he got it. What is the purpose of Aligarh Muslim University in our country right now? When it is a secular country and everybody is asking for secular country, and they're pandering on secularism when Hindus are getting bashed and killed, and cows are slaughtered and raped. So we feel that how, as a Hindu, we are living like a second-class citizen in our own country, even after giving whatever we want, even after giving everything that they wanted. So in Muslims of America today, if they're Indian American, they have chosen Biden. They have gone against the Indian heritage too. They've gone against their forefathers. At one point of time, most of them were Hindus, and today you may be Muslim. That is fine, and we don't look against anybody either. We are okay with anybody. That's why we have almost third largest Muslim population in India right now. If you take Indonesia first and Pakistan second, India is the third, and that's not a little amount. And that we can't just constantly push a narrative saying that Hindus are against Muslim. We are not. We believe in coexistence. We believe in living with everybody, but also we are also somebody that we don't want to have commit crimes ourselves, as you rightly pointed out before. None of the Hindus even become terrorists or take violence as a measure to go revenge against what happened. None of the Kashmiri Pandit became terrorists today. But how come a 18-year-old in Paris become a jihadist, goes and takes off a head? And that this is an issue in this country, and our country today, America, is not able to see that. Unfortunately, we have lobbyists, very very strong lobbyists, from Palestine and Pakistan, trying to influence narratives. And India, I tell everybody that India is very rich in terms of history and heritage, but India is also rich in terms of people. India is also rich in terms of weather and agriculture. You can't just create sunlight. You can't just create a weather and perfect situation for your agricultural need. But India has those natural resources. And as you said, Baloch has those natural resources. Those are assets. Those are natural assets. Whether America stands with India today or not, India will survive and India will thrive. And we have the right kind of mindset and the leadership in the central today, which will bring some changes. We see the changes already. But unfortunately, we also see Kerala like situation and West Bengal like situation. So what as a Pakistani born Muslim, your ancestors Hindu in Gujarat, what would you tell our Hindus and Muslims of India? What do we do over there? The other day they just killed a BJP leader in West Bengal.
Well, as you mentioned that there is a Jamia Millia Islamia, there is a Aligarh Muslim University. Is there any Hindu university? There is not. There are convent schools for Christians. There are madrasas in every street of India. But there is no Hindu madrasa. Why? So, how long you will live in your own country as a slave, as a minority? You are in majority, but you are living as a minority without any rights. So, as you said, that you have a rich culture, heritage, civilization. Feel proud of that. I don't ask Hindus to discriminate against non Hindus, but at least learn your own rights. Learn your own rights that you are also equal citizen of India. Why always your religious sentiments are humiliated while always a care is taken they always take care of the feelings of Muslims in particular. Is there ever any Hindu who taken up violence? As you said that Kashmiri Pandits were a genocide was committed. They were expelled from their houses, their area. They had to live in tents in Jammu from -40 to +40 in Delhi. But they did not take up violence. And a Muslim immediately burns a police station in Bangalore because you have been taken for granted. Hindu lives are taken for granted, and Muslim, they feel that it is their birthright to rule, to be a ruling class. So I think they have not come out of that complex, both Hindus and Muslims. Muslims still they feel that they are superior and they have a complex of from ruling class. Hindus are still living in a complex. They have to come out of it and they have to own their own culture and heritage, their civilization, their country, and their religion, most importantly. Without religion, you are nothing. Feel
Yeah,
proud
absolutely.
of your religion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not taught. Look, I'm a Hindu born in a Hindu parents. We know our parents, our father. My father had gone through 1946 Noakhali issue, the genocide over there, and they had to leave the Bangladesh area to find a place in the Indian border, somewhere in the Indian border, so they are not killed. Right, that was the focus, and they lost everything in there. Now, coming from that, one of the things that we see over here in United States, unfortunately, we get bashed on caste system. Oh, Hindus have caste system. They all talk about caste, cows and curry. That's it. That's the Hindu about. But I'd like to understand a little bit more from the Islam. In Islam, there's about 72, 73 castes nobody talks about. As you earlier pointed out, there's Deobandis, Wahhabis, Sunnis, Shias, which is the ruling class. They are still don't, there's no conscious about it. Now, if in a Muslim countries, they're still fighting against each other. In India, because it's a Hindu majority, Hindu, Shia, and Sunni are together fighting against Hindus. Now, in Paris, there was no Hindu. So who are you fighting against? In Sweden, there is no Hindu. Who are you fighting against? So let's see if you can shed a little bit of light on this caste issue, which most of the universities are taking against on India and Hindus at this point, and labeling Hindus as the lowest grade of the humankind.
Well, I think that the caste system of India was in medieval India. Now, in today's India, there are no caste systems. Nobody knows that who is Brahmin and who is from other caste or lower caste. And I think that it does not exist. It exists only in theory, but in day-to-day life, it does not exist. And still, Muslims, as a Muslim, we classify each other. You are Kafir, you are Shia, you are Ahmadi, you are Deobandi. So I think that the caste system exists in India. And as you said, that it is not Muslims, they don't have only problem with Hindus, they have problem with everyone. They are fighting with Jews in Israel and Palestine. That is also a fight between two religions. Then they are fighting in, the violence of Muslims is everywhere. And it is not confined to India or Hindus. While hundreds of thousands of Hindus live outside India, have you ever heard a Hindu committing any violence or Hindu killing someone on the name of religion? Never. You cannot find a single incident. And the second thing is that crime in United Kingdom, I don't know exact ratio, but for example, if 5% population is Muslim, but prison population is 50% Muslim, hardly a single Hindu will be in prison. Because Hindus, wherever they live as a civilized person, they work hard in Gulf, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Abu Dhabi. They love Hindu employees because they perform their duty with honesty. While Muslim, they don't perform their duties so nicely, and then there is a criminal mindset that prevails in Muslim societies. So in America also, I'm sure that Muslims are far more than their actual population in prison. But there will not be so many Hindus in prisons because in America, Hindus are contributing to the society in positive manners. So this is the basic difference between Hindus and Muslims. While about the caste system, I think that I know so many Indians everywhere. When I was living in Dubai, I had many Hindus living with me. My roommate was Deepak Kumar. I never knew if he was a Brahmin or he was another caste. So the caste system exists in theory and in medieval India. But in today's India, you don't know this unless somebody is highlighting politically, like Hathras.
Yes.
Now there are rapes going on. Now Hathras girl was not raped because, first of all, the rape is not still confirmed. But if it happened, it was not because she was Dalit. So the caste system does not exist in India. And still I've heard, I don't know very much about it, that in India, Dalits have special reservations and benefits, while Brahmins, they don't have. They have to work hard to earn their life. So this is a false propaganda to malign India, India's potential progress. To malign India's potential progress, these are created slogans, fascist, Hindus, caste system, all these things. But I don't think that there is any caste system existing in India in practical.
Right. You see, the quota system, the reservation system that was implemented after British left, right, to bring the oppressed, or not really oppressed, but the poor community out there. It has totally politicized now. The same caste system issues are being brought over here in United States. There is a case against Cisco, and I've also heard that the case also extended to HCL, a similar caste issues against the Hindu. So what is the caste system over here? We don't know. I don't myself know exactly what caste I belong in America. And that's not how we also saw another Indian family either. But when this kind of news are coming across, there are some certain organizations like Equality Labs, that Dalit based, but they don't talk about in terms of how much reservations and quotas they got in India and how they ended up in America for in higher class societies. Now today they unfortunately pushing those kind of narratives right here in United States. And as you rightly said, it is because they want to malign India. They want to malign India so much that they actually halt India's progress. But unfortunately, nobody can at this point, nobody can halt India's progress, no matter what they do. Similarly, what they're doing with Mr. Trump as well. So much of conspiracy, so much of coups against him, and the negative narratives, and even the social media giants are trying to help Biden to win, for him to win. And today we are in a situation that no matter who, a small kid to a college kid to adult, they don't know anything about what Trump has accomplished, what his how racist he is. If you have to ask why not Trump, all they will talk about is Trump is racist and Islamophobe. That's all, because that's the narrative that was pushed through media, and obviously they don't know anything better. So we are, as a Hindu, we are feeling, we are seeing, we are experiencing the same kind of conspiracies against Hindus, that we don't go around and talk about our own issues or our rights. The Hindu girl, Miss Priyanka Varadwaj, whoever she is, today proudly she talked about Islamophobia, but she doesn't know that our Hindu girls are getting raped in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan every single day. And there is no Hindu left in Afghanistan today. In Bangladesh, there is about 8%. In Pakistan, there is about less than 1% today. She doesn't know. So what kind of Islamophobia she's talking about? So these are the things that we don't know. We haven't done very well. Hindus have not really done well in terms of teaching our own children. And even if you look at our own household, we'll have one or two children, not more than that. So we're very career focused, well educated, but we don't know how to stand up for our own dharma. We don't know how to stand up for our own causes, our own narratives, and even if we are getting prosecuted, we are afraid of talking about it. That's a real issues in here. So I know we have taken about 90 minutes from you. You have given a lot of information from our audience. Why to vote for Trump and what's happening coming from Pakistan. As a Pakistani Muslim, today, as a French citizen, he gave us a tremendous amount of information about why you should be voting for Trump. Whether you are Muslim or Hindu or Sikh really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're voting for the country as well. And then if you're voting for Pakistan, if you were voting for Biden, you're also voting for Pakistan. You're voting for Biden, you're voting for Palestine. You're voting for Biden, you're also voting for human rights abuse and violation and corruption in the United States. 47 years, as Mr. Azakia said, 47 years in political seat. What has he accomplished other than the crime bill, the same crime bill that Miss Kamala Harris, whoever she is, whether Baptist, Christian, sometimes Hindu, sometimes Jamaican, sometimes Hispanic, whoever she is, or took a Chinese name, today she enforced that kind of law. And one day she even touted that she was smoking with Tupac. That kind of corruption we are dealing with today over here in the United States. And today we as a Hindu have no voices, no choices, nobody hears us, nobody understands us. If we even raise one single voice, we are labeled as racist, xenophobes and Islamophobe. We are not any phobe. We are not any phobe. We are not even today at a point to try to save our dharma. Our dharma, our culture is at a dangerously critical point after thousands of years. And Mr. Razaki also knows how was his ancestors converted. These are some of the information for you to understand. If you think today in America Islam is not here, if you think in America Islam is not going to come here, ask him. He's been in Sweden. Tell us a little bit about Sweden burning.
Talking to me?
Yes. So tell us a little bit about what happened in Sweden.
Well, in Sweden also, when there was a civil war in Syria, Sweden welcomed refugees from Syria. And then these refugees, the Muslim refugees, the rapes of young girls started happening. And then there was an incident happened that a young Swedish boy was raped and buried alive, and he was taken out. And then, of course, when you try a tolerance of a nation, there is a limit of tolerance. So Swedish people, then they started burning Quran, and these things happen. And in retaliation, Muslims, they resorted to the violence. They burnt entire areas. And I think that now governments in Europe have enough now. And they are coming strongly. I will talk about France more, because France is very strongly coming. Yeah, one mosque in Paris was closed last week. About a dozen other mosques were raided and closed. Many madrasas are closed. Many people are arrested on the charges of extremism. So who brought this situation? Muslims themselves are to blame. Our conduct is important. Muslims, as a Muslim, we have to watch our conduct. And if we don't change, if we don't believe in a coexistence, if we don't believe that others are also equal citizens, then I think that there will be more strong actions in America also, in Europe also. And for Muslims, the life will become tough if we don't change ourselves. And we take everything for granted, and there is a limit of everything. And common people now, for example, day before yesterday, 2 Arab women were killed by 2 Christian women under the Eiffel Tower in Paris. I don't support this violence, because violence by a common man is never condoled. But I understand that the tolerance of French people has crossed limits now. And that's why a common Muslim is facing a tough situation now, especially a peaceful Muslim like me. There are thousands in Europe. we are facing a tough situation, and until our Muslim brothers, they don't change their conduct, it will be very tough.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As you see, as you rightly pointed out, one boy was raped and buried alive. He was saved, but you saw their patience level. You can't just go on doing this for decades, right? So at one point of time, you're going to break the cord, and the people are going to take the law in hand, and that's what happened in the burnt Quran, and that's what happened in India, in Bangalore. What happened? Similar thing. Somebody wrote against our Hinduism, and then on a
Right.
response, the political, I believe it was a nephew of a politician that actually wrote something on Muhammad, and that's it. There was no conversation, there was no discussion. It was not like, why did you say it? I said it on in return. It was not like that. It was a burning of police station. It was a burning of his house. It was a riot in the community. The lesson is basically, you cannot say anything about them, but they can say anything about you. And that's the narrative that we have to live with, and we have lived with. Hindus have lived with for thousands of years. And Diwali is coming in India about a month or so. Lakshmi Bomb is coming. That's a Bollywood movie. And think about the name, Lakshmi, the goddess. The goddess name has been aligned with a bomb. There's no Allah bomb, there's no Jesus bomb, but Lakshmi bomb, yes. But Hindus have to tolerate it. And it was going to be released in Diwali. The even on top of it, the narrative is it's a transgender woman played by a Hindu actor. So this is what we're going through from a cultural destruction perspective in India. And that is, we have heard from Europe what is happening over here now in United States. Unfortunately, our friends and our colleagues, they don't understand the threats. What is over here in BLM, Mrs. Zakia, what happened in BLM? It's been hijacked, as you said, by Islamist and leftist and Democrat party. And there were azans during the riots. And during the riots, when there were azans, their prayers, and the riot stopped. And that was the only time the riot stopped. What are we witnessing over here? Islamist takeover of America?
Well, there is a difference between protest and riots. They were not protests, they were riots. You are correct. And no, I don't think if President Trump wins, I think that things will go on right direction. But if Biden wins, then Americans will pay a very big price. That I must tell you, because he has a very weak policy on different issues. We need a strong president in America to contain these things. Now, Black Lives Matters. Black Lives Matter existed since centuries. Now, all of a sudden, these things happen. It is, and it did not happen only there. In London also, it happened very much. So I think that no, you cannot say that Islamic powers will take over America. America is a great country and a very strong country. But then, yes, common American will pay price if the issue is not tackled by force. The way France is doing, America has to come strongly and address the issue. Don't say that terrorism has no religion. Terrorist has a religion. And every terrorist, they don't, every Muslim is not a terrorist, but most of the terrorists are Muslim. And you cannot tackle the issue, you cannot address the issue until you address the correct, you point out the correct direction. And the correct direction is that you have to stop Islamic terrorism. You have to call them Islamic terrorists the way French president is saying. If you keep your eyes closed, then you are not addressing the issue. So I think that it will be very dangerous scenario if we get a Democrat president, because I don't think that America can progress under Biden. You will pay heavy price. Americans will pay heavy price if Biden is American president. I hope it does not happen.
Yeah, we also hope that doesn't happen. As you can hear today, we have a wonderful speaker, Mr. Arif Azakia, from joining us from London. He has told us a tremendous amount of information from European side, also from Pakistan side, from what he has been pushing in terms of real human rights violations in certain countries, and how, as a Pakistani Muslim born in Pakistan, he actually calls himself as a Indian first. His ancestors were from India, Indian soil. So this is a talk for you to understand how certain threats that India has faced over the generations is right now being faced by America. It's the same threats, whether it's a Chinese expansionism, aggressive expansionism, or it is an Islamic terrorism. And we don't talk about it much. Most of the Americans, white Americans, don't understand the issue well. They don't think it's going to come and hit them right here. And they think Paris is far, India is so far, in England is so far. It's not an issue over here. But when you look at these globalized issues, we know this is happening right here in America today, Mr. Zakia. We have certain pockets of areas which are very Islamist. For example, Michigan, for example, Minneapolis, these are Islamized. Even in New York, our New York mayor, Mr. de Blasio, gave 500,000 halal meals during Ramzan. So you see the aspect of appeasement that has gone, and it's happening everywhere. If New York can do it, if California can do it, it is going to happen right here in our backyard as well. And it's not too far from here to think about or imagine that this is going to come and hit us. And fascism is one aspect, because no matter whether it's a communism or Islamism that takes over, fascism is part of it. Just like what we have seen today, what we see in our media today, there is only one narrative. The narrative is Trump is racist and fascist and Islamophobe. That is it. Everything against Biden, whatever news comes out against Biden, is being suppressed. So general people like us, we are unable to know exactly what is happening or what the two sides of the stories are. So one side of the story is getting propagated again and again through media and through their channels. So that's where fascism comes. Even if I hold a Trump hat, I'm going to be beaten up, I'm going to be spat on, I'm going to be called names. So that kind of fascism that comes along with the superiority, whether it's Islamic terrorism, whether it's a communism, it's the same kind of, at the end of the day, same kind of reaction that happens. We lose our freedom. We don't get to speak what is in our mind. We don't get to speak or debate. Indian culture is on debate. It is the Gita itself is on debate. It's all on question and answer. We don't literally say somebody is right or somebody is wrong. We discuss, we debate, we ponder upon things. We come back with thought process, and that's the culture we bring with us. And that's why we don't say anybody is superior to us, or anybody is inferior to us. And that's why Muslims have had so much of benefits in India. When a brother Hindu, a poor person has got nothing, and for the same kind of income or so, or whether it is a temple visit or no, we don't have any kind of concept like temple visit, like you have a Hajj visit also. So that kind of the discrimination was done for generations on Hindus. They don't think that this is coming over here. As you rightly pointed out before, in terms of jizya, how non-Muslims paid jizya taxes on to the Muslim rulers. They don't think this is coming over here. Today I vote for Trump. Tomorrow, if Biden wins, they're going to come after me because I voted for Trump. So what happened to the democracy that you all shouted on? What happened to the freedom of speech and freedom of expression that you so proudly supported before? So that kind of narratives are going to come. That kind of fascism is going to come over here. We have seen that in India. We have seen that in France. It's coming over here today after long years. France is taking strong action, but America is not there yet. America is not going to be able to do it. If Biden comes, it's over. If Trump comes, we still have a slightly bit of hope. Let's say things are going to go in the right direction. We have Mr. Arif Azakia from London, all the way educating all of us why Trump should be re-elected, not just for America, but for the world, and how he's so important, from whether it's from Middle East deal, whether it's from India, China issue, whether it's from Islamic terrorism. Azakia ji, I know it's about what 10, almost 10 o'clock over there. If you would like to say a few things for our audience, before the election, we're not going to be having any other conversation with you. So November 3rd is right on the corner, about a week or so. Whatever you can tell to influence, to inform our American, especially Indian American Muslims and Hindus, to go vote for Trump. That will be quite important for us. And all let us know what you think.
Well, I think that the decision is in the hands of American people. And we, from global perspective, we can only say some things about what we think of these elections, but we cannot vote in these elections. And it is in the hands of American people. And I request to all the Americans that exercise your right to vote, and then exercise your right to vote to correct persons, and think about it without any bias. Study things. Don't just buy the propaganda that Trump is racist. You yourself study things, and you can see that President Trump has done many positive things in very short period of time, 3.5 years. But what is the performance of Biden, who has been in power since 47 years? Now, there are so many democratic ruled states, and there we see that the situation is not so good. There is a Muslim petrol service in New York who will patrol in New York to watch Sharia, about if everybody is abiding by Sharia and this and that. Now, this is not the American society. Don't go for Biden, because it will not be an ideal society for Americans. Don't buy propaganda. Look at the actions taken by who can handle China better. China's imperialistic designs, nobody should underestimate it. And Vice President Biden cannot handle the monster China. President Trump is a strong man to handle. Then Islamic extremism, it is increasing day by day. Europe is coming out to handle it. America, if Biden wins, I'm sorry to say, it will be very dangerous. So my request to American people is that kindly think 1,000 times before voting and vote for the correct persons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Azakia ji. It was a lovely time understanding your thought process as well. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us, with our audience. I hope this messages goes far and wide and understand the real issues and real humanitarian steps India has taken, and what non-Muslims are facing in Islamic countries, and like Pakistan, as Mr. Azakia pointed out many times. And we also must stand up for our own rights, and it doesn't matter what they call us. But at the end of the day, if other party is standing against us, saying that they're superior and we don't have the right to live, I think we have the right to live, and we have the equal rights to live over here, and also equal rights to bring out our issues over here. And today, no party stands with Hindus, no party understands our issues, but there are both the party, including Republican Party, they understand Muslims and they appease Muslims. They don't talk about it, about the aggression that we fear here against us at this point. And so we as a Hindu community must stand up together. Even if there is a Muslim vote for Biden, I think Hindus, you can do better. You can. Why don't you start? Why didn't you start? Hindus, million Hindus vote for Trump. You haven't started that. If they could stand with somebody, why are you on a centrist point? Why do you say that you are neither Republican nor Democrat? Why do you say I'm not left, I'm not right? Uh, Take your position based on who you are, based on what you want for this country. If you're standing for Biden, you are not standing for this country either, because Chinese aggression isn't going to stop. Right? We already know what happened in Hunter Biden case, and then how Joe Biden is involved in it, and he had been lying to the American folks for years, and we haven't worked on it. We didn't have the ability because entire institutional conglomerate is working with the leftist and Biden cabal. So we must stand for the right and truth. Mr. Azakia is a Muslim today. His ancestor was Hindu today, but he hasn't hidden his agenda saying that he was Muslim and he came from Arab. His blood is Indian. With the entire region was Indian region once upon a time. So why hiding the truth? It's okay for him to be Muslim if that's what floats his boat. That's fine. We're not against him, or not against any Muslims. But if for anybody coming up against us saying that they're the superior and then Hindus have no rights, and then you have the right to stand against. And so with that, we have a tremendous amount of information today. Take it. We have a few more days for voting. I have already voted yesterday, and I have voted for Mr. Trump, not only for America, but for the world, for Middle East peace, but for India as well. And I have voted for Trump because I did not buy the propaganda, what mainstream media was propagating through Democratic narrative box. So what we are trying to do here is we stand with America firmly, strongly, and Trump is the only person who can strongly make sure that America is first and the agenda is right. The jobs are back here, and we are not suffering in terms of joblessness. We're not suffering in terms of our industries are moving from here to China or elsewhere. We're also making sure that America is strong as it was built. For last 100 years, America has been strong. So let's keep it strong, and let's not make sure that it goes and interferes in another country's sovereign decisions. India is the largest democracy in the world. It also houses second largest population in the world. It also houses third largest Muslim population in the world. So any House representative, any senators, any city council, a small city council, which is a fraction of an Indian city as well, goes and defames India. We as a Hindu, Indian American, we're not going to let that happen anymore. That's the decision we have taken. And with us, several people have joined us. And I think it's a high time Hindus stand up for their rights, and a high time we stand up for our own country as well. Without Hindus, there is no India. Without our culture, there is no India. As you know, when India-Pakistan was divided, Pakistan had actually got the Mohenjo-daro section, Harappa section. And as soon as the Pakistan was created, the entire work on the archaeological front has stopped. So you don't know anything what is hidden over there. We already know the architectural marvels. We already know the civilizational exceptionalist as a Hindu we create. We carry along with us. However, somewhere along the line, Hindus have changed, and then they thought that their culture, their heritage, their history was not good enough. And but at the same time, no matter what, wherever we go, whether it's America, Sweden, France, or London, we have retained our culture in some way or the fashion. So we must be proud of our Hinduism. We must be proud of our Sanatan Dharma. We must be proud of what our culture brought to the world, and how we also look at everybody as equal citizen of this world. Yes, you still have nation. You still have 197 nations. You still have 56 Islamic nations, but there is no Hindu Rashtra. There is no Indian Hindu majority also can't say that's a Hindu Rashtra. Why not? That's a discussion we should have another time, perhaps why and why not. And if there is a 197 country, most of them in Christian, some Buddhist country, even one Jew country, then why? What did we lose? We are the carrier of the entire civilization, the oldest living civilization. The Aztecs died, the Mayans died, all of the other civilizations died. We somehow survived even with all kinds of atrocities. Then how come we as a Hindus and Indian Americans have no voices today? What have we done wrong in the past? We'll talk about it later, but today's issue is very important. Today's issue is Trump elections. Today's issue is for you to understand how global issues are right here hitting us in our door here in America. If you as an American, a white American, think France issues are at France, or London issues are not going to impact you, or Indian issues are too far from you, guess what? You are absolutely wrong. It's hitting you right here. We have seen what's happening in Michigan. We have seen what's happening in Minneapolis. We have seen what's happening in New York. If you don't wake up right now, America will not stand Americans as well. So with that, I would like to say this talk was brought to you by Hindus and Trump Initiative. That was part of iExit, which is iExit Left. We're trying to make sure that we are taking Indian Americans and moving them from the leftist ideology to the embracing the conservative ideology, which doesn't take away the progress, which doesn't take away the growth aspect of it. You are not stuck in history, you are not stuck in past, but you don't literally cut your tradition, your roots. Just like what is happening in the United States today, BLMs are trying to destroy all signs and symbolism about America. They're trying to establish a new America. Ilhan Omar came and said about dismantling America, and that is dangerous. Take it as a face value, that is dangerous. And when we talk about these global issues, we're not talking about from a perspective of that country's issues alone. This country today, America, faces the same issues that India also faced for thousands of years. Islamism and communism is not, don't take it lightly. Once you lose your freedom, that's when you know what you lost. So we are trying to warn you right now. This is a warning sessions for the next, for 6 days. Of course, we're not going to have Mr. Zakia one more time to warn you. If you don't vote for Joe Biden, what you're going to lose. So take that as a face value, take his advice. And if you would like to donate for him, for his cause, please do. I will share his information as well. He's doing tremendous amount of work, like many other human rights activists, to bring out the information that mainstream media is not willing to show you. And it's hard. You see, it's very hard work because it's not supported by the government. It's not supported by the leftist media. So as you see, coming from Pakistan, he would take tremendous amount of abuse from his own community. So you understand where these activists are trying to bring, and what is in it for him. He's a Pakistani, he's a Muslim. Why would he talk for Trump when the entire America is trying to push that Trump is a racist and an Islamophobe? He's an Islami, he's a Muslim he's talking about, right? So from that standpoint, you understand there's two sects. Even in the entire Muslim community, there's two sects. One is a peace-loving, devotional sector who doesn't have anything to do with extremism. And he falls into that categorization. And there is another aspect who's an extremist, who thinks they're superior. They are the one who's going to rule the world. And they're going to tarnish every other community possible. he doesn't fall into that category, and that's why he's bringing you that information to you for all of us. So I hope you listen to it, share to your friends and family. And next 6 days are very critical, and I would like you to understand why we say Trump is the best for America, and why we are saying Trump is also best for the world. And with that, thank you so much, Mr. Azakiaji. It was awesome learning from you. I hope we could have a separate session later on in different topics, but this is a critical topic, and I wanted to hear your ideas and thoughts on this particular election. Thank you so much for having
For
been with us.
inviting. It was a pleasure having at your show.
Thank you so much, Zakia ji. It was a pleasure having Mr. Azakia with us. And with that, thank you so much from Hindus and Trump and I exit. And my name is Purnima Nath.